Hey guys, welcome back to Predictapalooza. In this installment, we are going to wrap up Tom's Princess, hopefully without any drama, and then hopefully get to the triage on the other 17 inchers that have shown up. I've got the set back up on the workbench, taken apart, and I'm doing some final checks and cleaning. For example, I had failed to replace that across the line cap, so I just took care of that. The IF shield and high voltage box were a bit corroded, so those are in evapor-rust right now. Cleaning knobs, cleaning controls. Got one cap to replace on the tuner. I want to clean the top of the tuner up a bit. And I'm also cleaning the cabinet, which looked to be in great shape, although I had noted that there were nicotine cigarette tar stains on the white grill cloth. Or metal perforated grill rather. I cleaned those a while ago. I thought, what the heck, I'll go over the brown part, even though it looked okay. And yeah, I guess part of that brown was due to the sludge. So the sludge will come off, and then I'll go over it with some Scratch X. I'll leave it up to the owner to put on a final coat of some type of car wax or some such. And then we got to put the CRT back together, because if you recall, it was also rather filthy. So the glass has been all cleaned off, the screen cover, just a matter of basically reassembling all this stuff. And then the usual thing, where I double check the tubes, and then do all the final adjustments to the screen linearity and whatnot. Now this set has the original linearity control, and it's working, so we are going to leave that alone rather than doing that replacement modification I talked about recently, because this is all in remarkably good shape in this area. It still has the original insulating tape and cardboard and everything, so we're just going to leave that alone. We're getting close. I've reinstalled the tuner and the main chassis, cleaned up some of the knobs and installed them, cleaned up the antenna and installed it. Next up, I guess I'll install the picture tube, make sure the set turns on, and the test pattern generator on, and make all those final adjustments. And just like that, the Brown Princess set is done. I'm going to be trying to go through these sets with less and less detail as we go on, because, well, how many times can I talk about the same things over and over and over again? If you want to know what all the final adjustments I did on this set are, I suggest you watch the previous installment towards the end, but I went through the same things with this, with the horizontal and vertical linearity and centering magnets and all that. And in the end, very happy with the results. Alright, let's get another one up here. I think next up I will get Tom's Debutante up on the workbench.
In the IRS Fresh Start program, they must stop.
And just like that, the Brown Princess is done. I'm going to be going through less and less detail with each set as time goes on, because I don't want to talk about the same things over and over and over again. I went through the same final adjustments on this set as shown in the previous installment. If you go towards the end of that, if you want to see about doing the horizontal and vertical linearity and centering and all that stuff, I covered it extensively in that video, so I thought I would just kind of get right to the point. It's nice to have a set that's not beige for a change. Original paint cleaned up really nice. It's the only one of these sets I think that has the original antenna. And yeah, this one was fairly uneventful. It is Been working great. I'm going to let it run for maybe another hour up on the workbench and let the owner know it is ready.
How can you eat this slop? Hungry for life.
Alright, with that out of the way, let's do triage on another set that was dropped off recently. We'll call this the Chase Debutante. Debutante is a 17-inch set, just like the Princesses we've been doing. The notable, well, a couple notable cosmetic differences. There are no arms on the side of the CRT, and it has a cloth front instead of the perforated metal like you see on the Princess and Siesta. Otherwise, the chassis is identical, pretty much. There are two variations that were used, the 10L43, in which case it is identical to the Princess. But there's also an 11L43, which was the end of the line, the last chassis they ever introduced. Has a couple subtle differences, like they removed the local distance switch because they were sold to hotel-motel chains and wired into the distributed video system in the motel, so it was hardwired with the signal source. Alright, this set's a little bit unusual in that the owner had started doing some work on it. He thought he would do it himself. He ordered up all parts. He already took the tuner out, and then he saw that I was open for business and figured, hey, why not just pay me to do it. So here we go. There's one very odd thing about this set that I want to see if we can get to the bottom of. So in this box we have the standard VHF tuner, knobs, and then we have a bag of parts and some hardware. I hope we have everything we need. But I think there's one thing missing. I'll have to talk to the owner, see what's up with that. What am I getting at? I'll show you in a moment. First off, cosmetically, it's in great shape. It is the, I guess it's black, which you don't see that often. I think only the Debutante came in black. The screen cover is in great shape. Basically, the whole thing is in great shape, except carved into it in two places it says Rustic Oaks Lodge. And it is over here as well. So I'm guessing at some point in this set's life, that's where it resided. Maybe it was some sort of social club and they ordered this for their meeting place and it was the club TV. I don't know. So let me turn it to the side and I'll show you what I'm concerned about. Here's what I'm concerned about. This set had the not often seen UHF tuner option. But I don't see the UHF tuner or the knob. Hopefully they are somewhere. The knob especially, that is one of the, if not the most difficult part to source when restoring predictives. Both of my 17-inch sets with the UHF option are missing their knobs. I'd love to show you what one looks like. I don't have any, and I've never had one. The only time I've ever seen one is I restored basically the same set about 6 years ago at my old apartment, and that set did have that knob. At the time I didn't realize the significance, and I should have taken a lot of photos and measured it and whatnot. 3D print, maybe. I'm not crazy about the quality of 3D printing when it comes to knobs, but it would certainly be better than nothing. Alright, let's turn this set and take a look inside and see what we have to work with. It does have the original back in very nice condition. See, it does have the local distance switch, meaning this does have the 10L43 chassis, so this set was not originally intended for a motel, but that's where it ended up. We have an assortment of screws on the back, which is not all that unusual. I think only one or two are originals. Only one, not two. How do I know? Because the originals are sort of bronzed in color and have a captive washer, so it doesn't mush into the masonite. Some of the screws that we have a that type of washer, which is not ideal because that definitely is going to dig into the masonite, and a couple don't have any washer at all. I do not know of a source for these. 1/4" head sheet metal screw with a captive washer with sort of a bronzed finish on it. These were used on many sets in the 40s and 50s to hold the backs on. I would love to know of a supply for them. Yeah, it's the back. Who cares about the back? Who sees it? Still, it'd be nice, because when the screws are missing, I need to replace them with something. Modern galvanized sheet metal screws don't quite look the same. Well, some stuff has been done to this. Oh, the high voltage cover's missing too. Man, that's in the parts somewhere. Also, there are no... the chassis is not secured. I did not realize that. Let's see, is anything hooked up? I don't think so. Oh, well, one good thing, the control cluster is here, and the power and contrast knobs are present. I can see this was partially recapped in the past. We have a couple new caps clipped in from the top there, and we have a new electrolytic over here. The rest appears to be original. I do have a couple part sets that are getting pretty picked over. I may have a spare cover for this if we need it. Let's keep our fingers crossed that everything else we need is present. Looks to be in very good condition. No corrosion. Minimal amount of work was done to it. I don't see anything chewed up or gouged or otherwise messed with. Oh, no. Damn. I spoke too soon. Alright, for some reason there is a wire going from a pin on the 6CG7 horizontal oscillator tube, and it goes around to the top of the board. I don't know what that's all about. Maybe that socket has a bad pin on it. Well, we'll take a look at that and replace it if we need to. I don't think they trashed pad. It's hard to tell. This trace looks like it kind of discolored, and I wonder if something maybe overloaded that trace and there is a break in it somewhere. Well, I'll deal with it. Otherwise, yeah, wow, I think you can really see now how clean this chassis is. No cigarette tar residue to clean off, no corrosion. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, one thing we need to do is find out if the picture tube is any good. There's another screw I'd really like to source. None of these are the original screws. At least that type, I do believe, is made. What I'm going to try to do is get an example of every type of fastener used in this set and lay them all out and see both online, on various forums, and on YouTube, if we can put our heads together and find a source, be it McMaster Carr or Granger or whatever, who still makes this stuff. Now that I've looked over the set and don't see any major concerns, and I see that it's been worked on, partially recapped, I'm going to do a controlled power-up test like we did with all the other Predictas. I'm hoping to just get some glimmer of a raster on the screen, which will mean that we got a good CRT, a good flyback, a good power supply, and a good vertical output transformer, and so on. As usual, I have my trusty PR57, which provides protection. Looks like we're already drawing power, so the power switch, yeah, power switch was in the on position already. Hey, now another power switch works too, which is great. So the tubes are lighting up. Dial this into about 117. Monitor output current looks pretty reasonable. It's less than 3/4 of an amp. I don't have a speaker hooked up, so we're not going to hear anything, but I'm hoping maybe we can kind of hear high voltage. Yeah, I don't see any filament glow on the damper or the horizontal output tube. I've seen that before. There's a separate filament supply for those two tubes. And let's see, let's turn this off. Maybe there's something up with that. Maybe that's why there was that wire down there. Oh no, the stake is undone. Well, I didn't take as close a look at this board as I should have, because I can now see that all the grounding stakes have been undone. No doubt in preparation for somebody to pull the board and work on it. Unless I reconnect all of them, it's just not going to work. And since I'm going to be pulling the board, and I don't want to stress it out any more than I have to, I'm not going to reconnect them. We'll simply test the picture tube on its own with picture tube tester. It's just as well the set was not fully powered up because we've got an issue with the picture tube. This is the original 17DRP4, the Philco label on it, and we have an HK short, heater cathode short. Not a dead short because we're not all the way over to the left, but it means that there is a, well, it should be an infinite resistance. It means we've got some path. Probably a bit of the cathode coating flaked off and is brushing up against the cathode. So I'm tapping on it now to see if it can be cleared out. That's the worst thing you can have other than an open filament, because it really can't be fixed. Don't have a G1 short, but you can't test emissions. It's just not going to work when you have an HK short. So, what do we do? Well, one, I'll let it run for a while, tap on it a few more times, see if I can dislodge what's ever in there, but that's pretty unlikely. We're going to replace the picture tube. It's a very expensive option, but I do have some spares that I paid quite a bit of money for, so I'm going to be passing that along to my customer if he's willing to pay for it. Or we have to rig up an isolation transformer for it. That device I showed not too long ago would actually do it. That universal does-all booster could do it. It was fairly large. It might kind of fit in here. I'd have to modify the socket to work with this picture tube. But even so, it's not going to work as well, even if you isolate the heater from the rest of the set, because you're introducing extra capacitance and inductance, and the AC from the heater is going to get into the cathode. It's not ideal. You're going to lose some bandwidth and may smear the picture a little bit, but it can be done. Oh, that's a drag. Unfortunately, leaving the CRT run for 15 minutes produced no change in the results. I double checked all my connections, and yeah, it's got an HK short. I'll try it with a different tester. Assuming the short persists, I'll relay it to the owner. I do have some spare picture tubes, but they're not going to be cheap, so I'll have to just lay out his options and see what direction he wants to go in. Which brings us to this, which is the final of the 17-inch predictors we're going to be doing this year, I think. And I guess, I was going to say I saved the best for last, but really it's the worst for last, because this is the most, well, interesting of the predictors. Alright, so this is a Siesta model, which is the one that has a clock built into it. I'll turn it around and show you in a moment, but I'm really more concerned about, well, what's going on in here. This set has a number of odd things going on about it. First off, the top has been painted. I don't know why, but this whole thing was spray painted. An ivory color. In the field there's some little dust bunnies that got embedded in the paint here and there. They painted right over the screw heads, and they even got some paint on the band. Actually, no, I thought it was spray painted, but the paint looks like it's kind of slopped onto that gold band, which implies it was done with a brush, which they did use a brush. They actually did a decent job, but I don't know why they did it. Even if it got discolored from UV or cigarette smoke or whatever, you can buff these up pretty easily. The main cabinet has also been painted. And I'm pretty sure I know why. Because I have already taken a peek inside. I took the back off. I believe all the original screws were gone. It says 17DAP4 here, which is an indication that that's the type of CRT, which would be the earlier type of CRT they used. Otherwise, it's okay. One corner got chewed off, but otherwise it's intact. Then we get to the inside, which has, well, it's got some issues. Now, the owner has already indicated to me that he would like a full-blown restoration. He'd like the missing antenna replaced. He bought some reproduction labels to put on the chassis, for example. He has a reproduction of this label. But I think we have much, much bigger issues to deal with. Let's start with this high voltage door. What the heck happened to this thing? It looks like somebody got very angry at this set and smashed it in. The hinge is no longer connected, and well, it took a beating. And this, I believe, is a hint of bad things to come with this set, because I can see traces of corrosion all over the place, which is why I believe they painted this. But they didn't paint the insides, they didn't strip the rust off the inside of the cabinet. So it's pretty darn nasty in there and down in here. And I believe it gets worse from what I've seen just peering inside. But let's just pull the whole thing out and find out what's really going on. Oh yeah, I also I noticed this, which is what's left of the audio output tube. So yeah, this set has had an interesting life, it would seem. Also noticed that this is disconnected. Normally, if you ever predict a Princess or a Debutante model, the AC plug goes right in here and you control it with a switch on the front, and that's that. This model they introduced, it's not just a clock, it has a timer on it to turn the TV on or off. Say you want to wake up in the morning to the news or whatnot, or go to sleep with the Tonight Show on or some such. You can set the set to turn off or turn on at predetermined times. So instead of the power going directly into this, the power connects up here, goes into the clock switch mechanism, and comes out here and then goes into the set. So that was a way to add some additional features without having to touch the main chassis. That stays exactly the same, with the addition of this metal plate they put on here to have a second AC interlock. So we have two AC interlocks here. This was disconnected, and I think they were running the power straight into this, which is an indication that the clock power switch mechanism doesn't work, which is not unusual, or perhaps they didn't understand how it was supposed to work, how you're supposed to use it. Because you don't have to use that mechanism. You can just leave it set into the on position, and then the power switch works as usual, and that's that. So we'll deal with that. That's, again, the least of our concerns. Let's get this out. When you see signs of rust, that's perhaps an indication that something bad has happened, like the set's been underwater, or it was stored outside, or rodent activity. Before I pull the chassis, here's a look at the front of the set. Screen cover has some issues. It's got some scuffs, it's got some dings, it's got one here looks like maybe a stone hit it or something, and there's a little bit of a star going into the plastic that's not going to buff out, and there's a scratch down in here that looks like it's kind of deep, probably not going to come out. So those may be somewhat visible when the set's working, unfortunately. A lot of this, though, is gunk that'll, probably on the inside, that'll clean off. So it'll look better, for sure, but not perfect. Here is that clock mechanism. This looks so nice because normally there's a plastic cover over here. The owner took it off, I think, for safekeeping. And he also has the knobs that fit onto this clock. And he's the one who gave me the tip. If you saw my recent video thanking people for giving me tips about stuff, he's the one who tipped me off about the knobs. And we have the channel and fine-tuning knob that look to be in pretty good shape. Alright, let us pull the chassis and see what's really going on with this set. And then, of course, we'll test the picture too. Alright, that is all the chassis screws. Let's look at the CRT. If you ever see one of these clips, normally that would be clipped up here. Some wires about like that. And let's see, high voltage wire. Out. Well, that won't do. That's not all we need to do, but that's a good portion of it. Also need to take off this control harness, which yet again does not have the original screws, and the screws that are there aren't even the right type. Originally they were a 1/4 inch. Everything else was Phillips, but for some reason these two screws are flathead. Looks like it's that. We could start pulling it out, but we'll have to deal with the power volume control and the speaker. But we have some lead length. Also, yeah, I can see why so many of these clocks are damaged. It's been a while since I dealt with one of these that was not damaged yet. So, AC interlock. These two wires go right to the clock motor. And if you just pull this out, it rips them right out of the motor. I've seen a number of motors that are in that condition. Now I know why. Looks like the easiest thing to do is to disconnect this little panel here, bracket, whatever. There might be some little clips on the other end of that wire, but they won't be easy to get at, so we'll just do that. We need to disconnect the tuner power. Get this a little bit further. Alright, ooh, yeah. Let's go freehand. So as I surmise, we have some definite corrosion issues. We have cobwebs. Man. Perhaps rodent droppings. Speaker's trash. Now, what looks to be like a large nut is in the speaker cone. I think it's a pecan. Oof. Yeah. Now, if this was mine and I really wanted to restore it because of all that rust, I would just take everything out of the cabinet and just throw it right into a rust removing bath. Evapor-rust, electrolysis, what have you. Thing is, if I do that, it's going to destroy the paint job. I have to see what the owner wants to do. We could leave it, could slap on some rust neutralizer and just paint over it. Just brush it on the inside just to kind of seal in and inhibit the corrosion from getting any further. This stuff, the IF shield, the high voltage cover, those I regularly remove the corrosion from. Here's one I did recently. Those are easy. Evapor-rust or CLR if it's not that bad. Same with the cover on that. And then the chassis itself, if I remove everything from it, I could put the whole chassis in rust remover, but that would be a lot of work. Have to remove the powertrain, remove everything. We'll be taking the board out and stuff, sure, but it means taking out the high voltage socket, the flyback, the power transformer. Yeah. There is a plan B. I have a single spare 10L43 chassis that I paid a bit of money to get so I could scavenge parts from it. And I have scavenged some parts. I scavenged, I think, the width control and some of the parts off the main board. But I think otherwise it's basically intact. So possibly we just swap the whole thing out. But I'm going to want more money for that because I had to pay, I think, $100 plus shipping for the chassis, and that was some years ago, and the value on this stuff seems to be kind of red hot right now, so yeah. Oh man, for sure this thing's getting a bath one way or another. This main board and all that's getting disinfected and hosed down. Well, let's keep going and disconnect the last few things and pull the whole thing out. I got it out, and yeah, it's about as nasty as I figured. Plenty of corrosion. It's had some servicing. The cap that normally sits up here has been replaced by this guy. Instead of the fusible resistor, we have this thing, which I think it might just be a power resistor. And it's one thing for this metal to be corroded. I can remove that and remove the rust. Same with these shields. But when I start seeing things like the IF transformers being corroded, that's not so much fun. The main chassis doesn't look too horrible though, nor does the power transformer. Let's tip this thing up. Yeah, amazingly that's not too bad. Maybe the old plating helped. Just a little bit of corrosion around the mounting hole. So that's something. And I've seen these boards look this bad or worse, and they clean up pretty well. So that part doesn't concern me too much. But yeah, humidity in electronics are not a good thing, so stuff like this starts happening. That should normally have an insulated plastic wrap around it. It came off because the adhesive failed with the high humidity. Looks like the audio output transformer might have been munched on a little bit. Terminals are very corroded. I had to use pliers to disconnect the speaker. And yeah, then there's the inside of the cabinet, which looks pretty horrific. Speaker, I don't recone speakers. I'll just get that right out there. I patch them when I can, otherwise I replace them with an exact sub if I can, or something that's compatible. Nothing special, these are just permanent magnet speakers, oval, 4x6 maybe, something like that, so I don't think that would be too difficult to replace. Yeah, so I'll get with the owner on this set as well and see what does he want me to do. Now if I was going to dunk this, I have to remove everything. There's a piece of fibrous kind of masonite running the whole length with a whole bunch of fasteners that hold it on. I take all that stuff off. Yeah, not looking forward to working on this. Now this was a late comer. The 21-inch sets I showed earlier came in before this. They're ahead of this in the queue. I don't want to, if I really went whole hog on this and removed all the corrosion, repainted it, whatever, that would take me weeks. And so I'm going to be saving this probably till last. And fair, this is the last of the sets I've shown you that has come in, so that's only fair anyways. And that'll give me some time to chat with the owner about what he wants to do. I was trying to think if I have a spare cabinet even. I do have a couple, or one spare debutante cabinet, as we discussed in an earlier installment. They're not exactly compatible, not without some modifications, so we're kind of stuck with this cabinet. But hey, might as well proceed and check the picture tube. Let's take a closer look at this circuit board, see how bad things really are. Not a complete loss. This is just coming up very easily. This would all, some compressed air or shop vac would take care of this pretty well, and I think I'll give it a little simple green or purple power. Fantastic. Use your disinfectant of choice to spray that down and rinse it off. But I'll have to get it out before I can do that, so I'm going to clean it up a bit before I proceed. And the whole thing, I'm going to vacuum down and such. I do have a spare audio output transformer should I need to use it. I have a spare IF shield too, I think. An IF board. But you know, the more I look at it, it's not horrible. So the main part is corrosion free. The high voltage box, aside from that bent door, looks fine. Assuming we don't have any trash sockets or the board isn't cracked or anything, I don't really see any reason not to clean it up and restuff it. You know, it's not like it was gnawed on or caught on fire or anything horrible like that. I just took off the IF shield. Holy cow. What happened to this thing that got so corroded? Jeez. Tube shields are pretty miserable too. Yeah, that's what concerns me the most, is when the coil forms and stuff. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna replace that entire IF board. That's silly to deal with, not when I have some spares. It's just silly to try to deal with that. Now, as far as the picture tube goes, I'm assuming it's one of the original types, DAP4 or DRP4. DAP4 was written on the back of the cabinet. I can't find a label inside, but I went with the settings. The settings are the same for either type, which should be 2.68 volts for the filament, and that is how it is wired in the set. If this was wired for 6.3 volt CRT, this lead would have to be moved over to somewhere in this vicinity. Alright, so I've had it running about an hour actually. We don't have any shorts, so that's a good thing. Cutoff control, it's not great, but we do have some cutoff control. Have to go all the way to full clockwise to get it into the area indicated on the meter. And then emissions stink. Not dead, it would produce an image, but probably not that great. And if we try the life test, yeah, not so good. So, we've got our work cut out for ourselves. So both of these sets are a bit of a mess. Save the best for last. Well, let's start with the cleaning. At some point I'll pop the CRT open, or enclosure open, to see what's really in there, because the owner would like me to repaint the arms. To do that I need to partially disassemble it anyways. I'll ask him about what he wants me to do about the corrosion inside the cabinet. I'd be inclined, given it's been repainted and it's a pretty decent job, to just brush on something like Rust-Oleum rust neutralizer. I think Extends also has a number of brands that make this stuff. What it does is it converts the visible or the exposed active iron oxide to, I think, iron phosphate, which is black. and kind of makes an impenetrable surface so that oxygen can't get to it to further corrode it. Then I can put some primer and some paint over that. Nobody will see it. I can do it all with a brush, and it won't affect the external paint job, and it'll be fairly easy to do, and I won't have to remove that board and all that stuff. The speaker, whew. Well, I guess gone this far, might as well pull the speaker out and see if that is a nut down in there. Yeah, that's a nut alright. But honestly, the speaker does not look as horrific as I thought it might. I think that is repairable. Bad as it may look. I'm surprised that all the metal filings, or what appear to be metal filings, all over around the magnet. I'll clean that off. But yeah, some glue and coffee filters, tea bags, and whatnot. I can patch that up. Alright, after all that, I think this is a good time to take a break. So, well, we started out with a Triumph and then ended up with a couple real challenges here. So while I finish off the other sets, I'll get to cleaning and derustifying and all that good stuff. I hope you enjoyed this latest Predictapalooza installment, and yeah, be looking forward to some, well, maybe some creative workarounds and challenges for sure, should the owners decide to proceed. Thanks for watching.